Okay, second year, so this week we're looking at two things. The first thing is a summary worksheet that you should already have done. That's just a kind of summary of all the work we've done recently, and it'll let me see what things we might need to go back to in the future. So I want you to try and do as much of it as possible without looking back, okay, and without a calculator. And we'll have a look at it and I'll work out from there if there's things we need to go back and cover again. But what we're also going to do this week is we're going to start a new topic on special numbers, and we're going to look this week at multiples and at lowest common multiple. So this video should help, and then there's just one exercise out the textbook because you've got the summary sheet as well, which we're going to have a look at now. You're probably already kind of aware of what a multiple is. There's a clue in the word multiple. The multiples of, if we start off with 3, are all the numbers that are in the 3 times table. Now we ignore 0, so we ignore 3 times 0, but 3 times 1 would be 3, so our first multiple is 3. Our second multiple would be 3 times 2, which is 6. Our third multiple would be 3 times 3, which is 9, and so on. So I could keep writing out the multiples of 3. If you're struggling with your times table, then remember you're just adding on 3 each time. But we don't stop when we get to 30, which is what we would normally do. We would have 33, then we would have 36, and so on and so on. So the multiples go on forever. They go on to what we would call infinity. Okay? So what normally happens when you're doing a multiple question is they'll ask you for a certain number. So for instance, if I asked you for the first 4 multiples of 3, this would be your answer. It would be 3, 6, 9 and 12. Those are the first 4 multiples of 3. Or if I asked you for all the multiples of 3 that are between 10 and 25, then all the multiples of 3 between 10 and 25 are 12, 15, 18, 21 and 24. So that would be the answer. And you could work it out by writing them out, or you could work it out just by thinking about it, depending on what the number was. So if we look at the next one, we're asking about the multiples of 7. So a wee bit trickier this time. You're obviously starting off with 7 and then 14, add on another 7, 21. So we're going up through our 7 times table. These are all multiples of 7. We've got 42, 49, 56, starting to get a wee bit trickier here, 63, 70, the next one would be 77, add on another 7, the next number would be 84, add on another 7, the next number would be 91, and so on. And again, we could keep going, but if I asked you for the first 5 multiples of 7, then the answer would be these 5 here, 7, 14, 21, 28, and 35. Or if I asked you of all the multiples of 7 between 60 and 80, the multiples of 7 between 60 and 80 would be 63, 70 and 77. Now, those two are maybe quite straightforward for you, especially if you're good at your times tables, because you're just kind of rattling through a times table. But you could be asked for a multiple of, for instance, 21. So if I asked you for the first 5 multiples of 21, we would start off with 21, and that's not that difficult. 1 times 21. 2 times 21, double 21, is 42. Okay, but then 3 times 21, I don't expect you to know your 21 times table. So 3 lots of 21, you've got 2 options. You could do a little sum. You could do 21 times 3 to get the answer 63. Or you could just add on 21. So it's kind of like writing out a sequence of numbers. And for the next one, we would have 84, and that would be your first 4 multiples of 21. If I asked you for 5, we'd add on another 21, which would be 105, and so on. So sometimes you might need to do little multiplication sums, or you might need to kind of do the adding on each time to get the answer. 21 was a relatively straightforward one. If we look at 39, even I'm going to struggle to do that just in my head. So 39 doubled is 60 plus 18, so that's 78. And then we've got to add on another 39. I'm going to do a little sum for that. So if we do that, 78 add 39, then we would get, there's 17. We would get 117, and so on and so forth. We could keep adding on 39 to get the next number. If you were asked about a number like 39, you'd probably only be asked for the first 3 or 4 multiples, so we wouldn't be expecting too much from that. So that's how we work out multiples, and you might have already seen that from primary school. But the other thing we're going to look at, and the exercise that you've got, is the lowest common multiple, or it's sometimes abbreviated to the LCM. Now, we've kind of talked about this a little bit when we did fractions earlier on in the year, but if I ask you to work out the lowest common multiple of, our first example we're going to do is 3 and 5. Now, the clue is in the question. We're looking for the lowest, or the smallest number. Common means that if you have something in common with somebody else, it means you share it. So if I said that we both have the fact that we've got grey eyes in common, it means we both have grey eyes. And then multiple means we're looking at the list of multiples. The easiest way to do this initially is to write out the first few multiples of each number. So I've picked 3 and 5 because they're both quite easy to do. So we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Let's stop there, that should be enough. And then if we look at the multiples of 5, we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and so on. Now, I'm looking for the smallest, the lowest number that's in both lists. The lowest number in both lists is 15. So the LCM of 3 and 5 is 15. And eventually, once you're good at this, you might only need to write out one of them, or you might even be able to think about it in your head. Think about what number's in both the 3 and the 5 times table. Okay, but at this stage, you might want to write out the list of numbers. There are more common multiples, so if we kept going, we would end up with 30 is in the 3 times table, and it's also in the 5 times table. So that would be another common multiple, but it's not the lowest one, and it's always the lowest one that's going to prove most useful for us in maths. Final example, lowest common multiple is 7 and 10, so I could write out the 7 times table. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, excuse me, 42, 49, 56, 63. Now, why have I kept going? Well, because I know it's got to match something that's in the 10 times table, and none of these numbers so far are in the 10 times table. But the next one is 70. That's in the 10 times table, so it looks like my LCM is 70. But I'm going to just double check just by writing out the 10 times table, but you can see how we've maybe made it quicker, okay, by comparing what we know about our answer. And that's easier for things like the 2 times table, the 5 times table, and the 10 times table, so the multiples of these numbers. But there is the proof that 70 is the first number that appears in both lists. Now, if I was to add a final thing in here and go back up to the whole 3 and 5, okay, so I might, in some smaller cases, or a few cases, I might actually have to ask you to work out a lowest common multiple of 3 different numbers. So we're going to start again here. Okay, so just quickly get rid of all this so we can see what we would do. So if I asked you to work out the lowest common multiple of 3, 4, and 5, okay, so we're going to need to find something that's in the 3 times table, the 4 times table, and the 5 times table. Now, 3 times table, 3, 6, 9, 8, 12, almost, 15, 18. Now I'm looking along those numbers, and at the moment I can see the only one of them that's in the 5 times table so far is 15, but that's not in the 4 times table, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, we've then got 21, we've got 24, this is kind of good to think about there, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, the next one is 42, so I'm adding on 3 each time. Now I'm going to stop there. I know my 5 times table, it's 5, 10, 15, 20 and so on, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Let's look at the 4 times table. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, so that's my first 5 multiples of 4. Okay, The number we've got in common so far is 12, but that's not in the 5 times table, so I need to keep going. 24. Then again, look, that's in both of these, but it's not in the 5 times table, so I still need to keep going. Add on 4, we've got 28, then 32, then 36, again in both lists, but not in the 5 times table, so this number's a lot further up here. We've then got 40 in the 5 times table, but not in the 3 times table. 44 would be next. Now look, we've got quite high up, and nothing so far has been in both those lists and the 5 times table, so I'm going to need to go even further, so sometimes we will need to go quite far here. So 42 and 44 is where we've got to respectively. Okay, so this one we got as far as 42, and this one we got as far as 44. So 42, the next would be 45 if we go back to the 3 times table. 48, 49, 50, 51 would be next. Add on 3 is 54. Add on 3 is 57. Add on 3 is 60. Now 60 is in my 5 times table, so I'm going to stop there and see if it might also be in the 4 times table. So 44, add 4 is 48. Add another 4 is 52, then we would have 56, and then bingo, we've got 60. So 60 is in the 3 times table, it's a multiple of 3, it's really far up. It's also a multiple of 4, and we know, because it ends in 0, it's a multiple of 5. So the lowest common multiple of 3, 4, and 5 is 60. Okay, so that took a little bit of work. Some of you might spot how we could have got 60 looking at 3, 4 and 5, and we'll talk about that next week, but it doesn't always work, so just be wary of that. Okay, but that's our work for this week. Any problems, let me know, and I'll give you a hand and maybe send you another wee video.